Hey, welcome into Strictly Speaking. Good to have you here. Today, we're going to be talking about an issue that, well, everybody's talking about, particularly since what just happened in Capitol Hill recently, a decision on trans bathrooms, restrooms, privacy spaces. At its core, the trans issue in this country right now involves a lot of things. It involves women and sports and whether or not biological men are ruining women's sports. But it also has to do with our First Amendment. The trans issue is affecting free speech. Are we allowed to say what we believe without being canceled, without being ostracized, without losing friends, without losing social circles, and so forth? Is it possible to discuss this and express your opinion without being called a bigot or a phobe or something of that nature? Our guest in studio today has lived it. She is a victim of it, as a matter of fact. She was a highly successful coach and has been for decades, and she was bounced because she expressed an opinion. Her story is a familiar story. Riley Gaines, who has been doing this now across the country for the last couple of years, is a close associate of hers. She is an ambassador for the Independent Women's Forum, and she is speaking out unapologetically. She is Kim Russell, and she is here with us today, Strictly Speaking. Kim, so good to have you in the building today. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me, Bob.
We have had a number of radio conversations in the past and some private conversations, but it's good to see you in person, to get you here on the set in Northeast Ohio. What a glorious day it is.
It is so beautiful.
So for people who are checking this out for the first time and maybe have heard your name or maybe they've never heard your name and they don't know your specific story, we need to start with the locale. We need to let everybody who doesn't know about Oberlin College, what Oberlin College really is. And what I mean by that, it is widely considered to be, the most left-wing college, maybe this side of Berkeley, which is already on the West Coast. That means all of them. Tell everybody about your experiences just with Oberlin College before we get into the story of, that has kind of brought you some notoriety and put you on Capitol Hill testifying before Congress.
Sure. So, as you said, I've been a longtime coach. I've coached lacrosse for over 28 years. Actually brought it to the western suburbs of Cleveland, where we are. And in 2018, I had said I was not going to go back to college coaching. And the then head coach at Oberlin reached out to me and said, "Hey, would you come back?" And I said no. And then the athletic director reached out to me. Asked again. I said no again. She said, "Would you at least come in and talk to some of our coaches?" I said, "Sure." So I started coaching there in 2018. I knew that Oberlin was perhaps the most liberal school in the country, if not one of the top. I also knew it was an incredible academic institution. And I went in with, my eyes open, and was looking forward to being somewhere where I wouldn't have to wear khakis and a men's polo shirt as a coach. As you can see, I don't look like a man, and I look much better if I wear women's clothing. So when I met with coaches...
You fancy yourself something of a hippie, right?
Yeah, so my nickname has been the Hippie Love Coach. I actually coach barefoot. I'm either barefoot or in boots in northern Ohio when I'm coaching in what we call the spring.
So from that standpoint, you fit right in on that campus.
Yes, absolutely. I'm very open, and we'll have long conversations. My office, wherever I've coached, has always been one where people felt comfortable, whether it was students, staff, other coaches, to come in and really have deep conversations, cry, laugh, whatever. My door was always open.
Did you have a political affiliation at all before everything happened to you?
Not really. I would say I was as apolitical as you get.
That's kind of what I was thinking, because the reason it's kind of weird, because I asked you about and wanted people to know what Oberlin College is. For those who don't know, people here in Northeast Ohio, maybe even this part of the country, know, but because you probably didn't think it mattered, right?
No,
I mean, because
not
you
at
were
all.
coaching lacrosse. You weren't teaching political science or theory. You're coaching lacrosse. It's fine. Did you ever think you would find yourself in the middle of a political, quagmire that took you to Capitol Hill to testify before Congress, all because you said, "Okay, I'll come and coach some lacrosse over there"?
Absolutely not. Actually, I thought Oberlin would be different because, in my mind, they stood for freedom of speech and freedom of expression and be whoever
Unique
you
idea.
want to be, right? And I quickly learned differently. Yes.
Yeah. Well, so first of all, were you successful since you started coaching there?
Relatively, it was not. We did not have a strong team, and we did okay.
Girls were happy. Girls like you. Program was on solid footing. All of that
Yes.
stuff, though.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, wins and losses, but I mean, it's a good program. Okay. So let's go now to what? It's been 2 years, right? This all started in 2022 for you.
Correct.
Okay. What happened in 2022 that brought you into where you are now, where you were more than just a coach? You are now an advocate. You were always a Title IX advocate, I would imagine, but
Absolutely.
not to the public nature that you are now, right?
Right.
So let's go to what happened in 2022.
Sure. In 2022, all winter, I was blown away when I saw that there was a male swimming on a women's team and winning women's events. And I kept thinking, what the heck? Why is nobody saying anything? What is going on here? Why is the University of Pennsylvania allowing this? Why is the NCAA allowing this? And I just kept hearing about him swimming, and I'm talking about Will Thomas,
right.
who had swam as a man his first 3 years of college.
Very slowly, it would appear.
Yes.
He swam very slowly. He was not very good.
He was never ranked, above in the hundreds in men's swimming. And he is a 6'4" fully intact male. And I think a lot of people don't understand that either. And then he won in, March 20th, he won the women's 500 free at NCAA Division I finals. A good friend of mine made a post on her personal Instagram story that said, "Congratulations to Emma Wayant, the real woman winner of the 500 free." To me, that was an absolutely perfect post.
Sure.
That was celebrating the woman who really won that event. I loved it. So on my personal Instagram story, which is Barefoot Heart Warrior, has nothing to do with Oberlin College, I reposted it with my own words at the top that said, "What do you believe? I can't be quiet anymore. I've spent my entire life playing, coaching, and starting sports programs for girls and women." Well, I woke up the next morning to a text from my athletic director saying I needed to come in for a meeting. I immediately knew what it was about. I just knew.
Did you just know when you posted it? In other words, when you were thinking that is the perfect message, like you said, from your friend, I'm going to share it too. Did you think this might ruffle some feathers here and I'm going to do it anyway? Or what were your thoughts when you did it?
So you're the first person who's asked me that, Bob. And truthfully, I work very energetically, and my energy said, this could get you in trouble.
And you ignored your energy?
No, it was that important to me.
Oh, so your energy told you it could get you in trouble.
Some people may be upset about this.
Do it because it's important to do.
This is very important.
See, that's gutsy.
This is very important. As a now 57-year-old woman who was 5 when Title IX was passed, Title IX had 37 words then. And it basically gave us as women and girls equal opportunity to boys and men, not just in athletics, but in all academics and activities around academics that got federal funding. Because I was 5, I was part of the first generation who really benefited from that. And I played field hockey and lacrosse in high school. Because of that, I ended up getting a scholarship to William and Mary to play 2 sports at the D1 level, and my college cost less than my high school did. In addition, I got an internship at Wimbledon that came directly from, again, playing field hockey and lacrosse, because I had the opportunity to meet Mark McCormick, who was at that time the CEO of International Management Group, the biggest sports management company in the world. And we were going to England to play field hockey with William and Mary's team, play some international games. My best friend and I were going to travel around Europe for a couple weeks, and both of us got to work at Wimbledon. It was one of the most incredible experiences of my life and led to me moving to Cleveland to work for IMG right out of college.
All right, so that's a phenomenal story, and so that's why Title IX was so important to you. Did you feel that because you saw this one guy calling himself a girl, took that title from the recognized female winner, like you said, and your friend said, did you feel like that was really worth it? That was going to lead to all kinds of things that it has? I mean, why didn't you just write it off as it's a one-off? There aren't going to be too many of those. No big deal.
Absolutely not. I did not think it was going to be a one-off. I didn't really think of where it was going, except that this took opportunities away from women. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I hadn't met all of the women who I've met today. So I have worked very closely, and I'm very close to Paula Scanlon, who actually swam on the swim team with Will, who is now calls himself Leah Thomas. Right. Her story would make anyone cry, I think, who cares about women. The entire team of women swimmers at UPenn was told at the beginning of the season, Will is now Leah and will be swimming with you. We'll be undressing in the locker room and getting ready with you in the locker room every single day. And if you have any problem with it, you need to go to see psych services. Paula had been sexually assaulted when she was younger. That entire team was forced to change with him 18 times a week. 18 times a week for an entire season. Not only that, imagine how you feel if you've been sexually assaulted and you are forced to undress with a 6'4", fully intact male every single day. And the administration has made you feel so bad that you don't even talk about it with your teammates because everybody's afraid to say a word. So when you bring up freedom of speech, this is where it starts.
That's exactly right. And that's the reason I brought it up. Those women weren't allowed to talk it amongst themselves because they didn't know which of them might be the one that is going to go and tell the athletic director or the coach, so-and-so, Paula is not happy with changing in front of, Will/Leah or whatever. It's almost like 1984. Is there an eye in that clock? Is it watching us? Because and that's a terrifying thing. But you weren't even thinking about this aspect of it, right? When you made your post that you said might get me in trouble, you were just talking about from a competitive standpoint.
Exactly.
This is crazy.
Exactly.
Why should men be racing against us? They have a huge advantage. This is not right.
Yes.
So you get the text message the next morning from the AD.
Yes.
And take it from there.
I went in to meet with the athletic director and the associate athletic director. I was immediately asked, why would you do this? Basically, are you dumb? Like, where you coach. And, told that, sure, I'm allowed to have my own opinion, but when that opinion goes against that of the college, it could be a problem for your employment.
The college that supposedly was supportive and a strong believer in free speech.
Yes.
Oberlin College,
yes.
The left-wing college that says, let everybody be, man. Everybody can be their own person and think what they want and say what they want.
Yeah.
I mean, why you felt like you might be at home there, yes. Automatically they tell you, what are you doing speaking freely? How dare you do that?
And I already had a taste of that because during all the COVID lockdowns and things, I had spoken up and had been silenced immediately.
Really?
So
what kind of things did you say about that?
During one athletics meeting, the only one, it was a phone call Zoom meeting that the president was on, she made some comment and I asked a question about our freedom and she said, you are free. You're either with us or you can leave.
And she actually felt that meant freedom? I mean, that to me sounds like the exact opposite. You are a prisoner or you are free. If you want to be free, leave. If you want to be a prisoner. I mean, so what are we talking about? Are we talking about forced vaccinations? Are we talking about lockdowns?
All of the above.
All of it.
All of the above. And a good friend of mine who was a coach there at the time too, texted me immediately and said, have you packed your bags yet?
So now that was 2020 and into 2021.
Yes.
I'm just curious because I didn't know this part of your story.
Yeah.
Did you end up complying? Did you have to take the shot?
No.
You didn't?
No, actually because of speaking up, a number of other staff and coaches realized that they could reach out to me. So I have a group of women. We call ourselves the Freedom Women Warriors.
Love that.
And we would share whatever information we could get, whether it had to do with health, whether it had to do with basically our freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them got all of the information on exemptions, medical and religious. And we already knew that the religious exemption that she had filed for her son at Miami University went through. So I shared a huge folder of information with others who were also interested, and I knew once one of ours went through, everybody's had.
So you won.
Yeah.
So it's that's fantastic. First of all, good for you. Congratulations. That is awesome, because so many places of business, universities and other things, they rejected religious exemptions, which of course is just as egregious as what we're talking about, because they're in the same amendment. Freedom of religion and freedom of speech are in the same doggone amendment. But that probably had an impact on your decision to go with this, right? Because you challenged, the college with the COVID issue. And so when you were thinking, your energy told you this might get you in trouble, you thought, yeah, but I got by with the last thing. I've got to do what's right here. You felt pretty confident then.
Yeah, and I cannot be quiet if I believe in something strongly, and especially when it's a truth. The truth is actually a higher vibration than love. So again, I told you I'm an energy person.
I get it.
And when
I've never been about that vibe, but I am fascinated by people who are, and I love to hear the story. Continue.
So knowing, how can we not speak the truth, right? How can we be silent about the truth? And you talk about the First Amendment and the freedom of speech and the freedom of religion. And here I was at the institution that's supposed to embrace all of that. And so, going back to being silenced in 2020, 2021, I was turned in multiple times for not having my mask all the way up on an outdoor field.
Oh my gosh.
Outdoor field that is, 120 yards long, trying to yell at people 50, 75 yards away.
Right. And you got turned in by your players?
Yes.
All right, so this is starting to take shape now.
Yes.
Because that's one of the reasons I asked you earlier on about how successful you were. Your players happy with you, and they seem to be, but they were so I don't know. I don't want to use the overuse the word indoctrinated, but they were so tied into or locked into or whatever what the college was preaching. Yes. And what the prevailing orthodoxy was. Yes. They weren't willing to think on their own, and they were willing to call out anybody else who did, is what Correct. It sounds like.
Very correct.
Okay.
So I believe I was at Oberlin for a purpose, and it was a gift. It was a gift to me, and everything in this world that seems crazy became very apparent to me in my years there. If you had told me the things that were going on at colleges and at schools, I don't think I would have believed you if I hadn't seen it firsthand. As you've said, and as I've said on many interviews, I am one of the most open, welcoming people. I will embrace and love you, whoever you want to be, right? I will do my best to call you whatever name you want to be called if you change your name. If I already know your name is something else, it's going to take me a while. I'm 57, right? But what I wouldn't have believed is, and I will call it brainwashing because I really do believe it is, what has been happening, not just at Oberlin, but at schools across the country, really across the world, and at our elementary and middle and high schools, that is teaching kids and adults, because if you look at universities, most professors are there for life, right? They are believing everything that's coming in. Absolutely. As well. When I started at Oberlin, every time I would call my sister to tell her a story, she'd be like, hold on, I have to be sitting down. Because she wouldn't believe it, right? That this is the truth. And so I actually just had this conversation with a woman who I met when I was on the Title IX bus tour in June, who works closely with Martina Navratilova. And I've gotten the opportunity to speak at radical feminist conferences. And all of these women are on the same page. So we are talking longtime lesbians, longtime extreme feminists who are very liberal, are all on the same page with the fact that biological men should not be in our private spaces, our sports, specifically bathrooms, locker rooms, prisons, and domestic shelters. Out. None of that should be happening. And when I would talk with these women, we were all shocked by how much this younger generation has bought in that it is the kind thing to do to allow men to play sports on women's teams. Now, because I was at Oberlin, when it started to come through, I was like, oh yeah, of course, I accept everyone. Of course, everybody should have the right to be who they want to be. Yes, I'm open. The DEI teaching started coming through. Yes, I support everyone. I don't care what color you are. I don't care where you're from, what you believe religiously. None of that matters to me. I care about you as a human being, and I will love you for who you are. I don't have to like you, right? I don't have to like everybody. You don't have to like everyone, but I am going to respect you and give you that loving kindness. What I learned quickly was, in one of my first meetings, I was told, oh, not everyone on your team is going to want to be or identify as a woman. And right away I was like, well, what do you mean? Well,
this is the women's team, right?
This is called
it's not a co-ed league,
women's
right?
lacrosse team.
Yeah.
I said, okay, so explain this to me. Well, you can't call them women or ladies or girls. You're going to need to use neutral terms. I said, okay, like what? Everybody or friends or whatever. So I'm trying to wrap my brain around this. And again, I'm born in the feminist movement time, and I grew up calling everyone guys. I was from a neighborhood where my best friend and I were the only girls playing kick the can and Red Rover with all the boys, and everyone was a guy. Everybody was called guys when I was little. And then with the feminist movement.
Until 5 years ago, everybody was still guys. If there's a group of people over there, hey guys.
Yes.
It doesn't mean you're all males. It's a word that means people.
Exactly. And, we still call defense in lacrosse man-to-man defense, right? And if I'm coaching, when I got to the college level, they're like, oh, you're going to have to say ladies and not girls. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, they're girls. They're like the same age as my daughters. So all of these things, if you're used to saying something, it takes practice, right? To change your vocabulary, to change your thought process. I still call people guys. I still call adult women girls. I teach boxing for people who are in their 80s, and I say kids. Nobody seems to get mad at me for these
bet
things.
they love that, actually.
Yeah,
they love that.
right? I'm like, all right, kids, let's go. And one of my first practices at Oberlin, I say, pick up a girl, right? That's pick up a girl. We're in practice. Defense, pick up a girl. And I would be told quietly at first, hey, either by players who were allies. I was never told by a player who possibly wanted to identify as something other than a girl. None of them ever said anything to me like, could you please change this? It was always by the teammates that's how strongly, and I understand that, they're protecting their teammates in their eyes, right? And then the pronoun part came. Okay, this person goes by she, her. This person wants to be called they, them. This person might want to be called he, him. I can't keep track of all of this in my brain. This is not me not wanting to be nice to you. I was brought up with extreme grammatically correct direction. If I used I or me incorrectly in a sentence, I would immediately be corrected by one of my parents, always.
That's me to my children.
Yeah.
Because I was an English teacher, and it's very important to me, which is why I will never, ever call a person who is an individual by a plural pronoun, ever. Nor will I switch them because of the biological part of this, and I don't care. It's not a matter of kindness to me, it's a matter of accuracy. I'm not playing that game.
So I couldn't, my head went explosion when I would look at somebody and think, how do I conjugate this verb? It's one single person. So I just
It's one of the ladies on your female lacrosse team, and you weren't allowed to call them as such.
Right. And so I wasn't allowed to use the words women or ladies. And it got to the point that I was even told by the athletic director, even in your letters to parents, put children, not daughters.
Wow.
And, you know, all of this to me was just, again, I'm an energy, I'm a feeling person. In my gut, it all felt wrong. That means I'm not in congruence. My body's not coherent. Like, nothing's okay with this.
Did your energy tell you at that point to get out? Did you just think, you know what, this isn't going to work. I can't do this?
Yes. So, yes and no. I believed I was there for a purpose and
Even
a reason.
then?
So this was pretty early on, right? That
I assumed you were talking hindsight, like I feel like I was put there for a reason, and here you are now being a huge advocate, and maybe that's it.
That
but
is.
you realized that at the time? You felt like you were there for a reason, even though you were uncomfortable with all this stuff?
Yes. I believe that everybody has a purpose in this world, and mine is to be a coach to help people feel more comfortable in their bodies. My whole coaching philosophy is, how do we feel better, not just in our own bodies, but how do we build a better community and team and compete better as a team rather than being so focused on an individual. Mm-hmm. But I absolutely love looking at what can we do to feel better in these bodies we have, especially as women and girls. Because if you look at women and girls, most don't ever feel comfortable in their bodies, right? We want to be prettier, we want to be skinnier, we want to be taller, we want more muscle, we want less muscle, we want more fat, we want less fat. Now people are, putting all sorts of fillers in their faces, and mm-hmm. I mean, that breaks my heart as much as anyone who's uncomfortable in the body that they were given. So I believe my purpose on this earth is actually to help people to feel the gift that they have been given with the body they have been given, and how to enjoy it and feel enough love for themselves that they can really enjoy this time on this planet.
Yeah, and that's reasonable, and that's noble, if that's what you feel like your mission is and your gift is. So let's try to steer back to what happened now after the athletic director calls you in, kind of dresses you down. Why did you do that? What's the matter with you? Now let's get to what the ramifications were.
Sure.
What they made you go through. Did they just put a little letter of reprimand in your file? There's a lot more than that. Tell everybody what happened.
Sure. So, this happened. I made the post March 20th, 2022. Mm-hmm. March 21st, I'm called into the office. That afternoon, I was told I needed to have a meeting with my team, with a moderator there. I chose at that time, women's volleyball coach, who's also the senior women's administrator for our department, to be the moderator. That meeting, it didn't matter what I said, it didn't matter what she said, it didn't matter what the assistant coach said. The meeting was led by a small group of players on the team who were very angry with me. how could I do this? How could I say this? You know, a trans woman is a woman, on and on and on. And when one player...
Did none of them stop to think about why you wrote what you wrote? You're looking out for them. Because the next Leah Thomas could be on the opposite team that you're playing, that Oberlin is playing, and 6'4" and heavily muscled and not winning a swimming race, but knocking you on your butt and hurting you. Did they not have any idea why you wanted to say women need to stay in women's sports and men can't play?
Those who did, it is mob mentality.
Yeah, so they were terrified to speak.
The one who did speak up was so quickly silenced by a senior who was extremely smart and a very good arguer, that the younger one felt so bad who spoke up, she had to leave the room.
Wow.
We were told as coaches we were not allowed to run practice that day, and we had a game 2 days later, that the athletes got to choose, and they chose not to have us be at practice that day. And what I'm going to say to this is one of the problems I see now in athletics in general, is that the kids are being given this power to not have to listen to coaches, and whether it's that they go and tell their parents, the parents complain to the school, whether it's a college, a high school, good coaches are leaving sports in multitudes. It's crazy at this point. And especially women are getting driven out even more than men. If you look at the way men have coached boys and men in general, they will yell, they will treat boys and men very differently, whereas if we even raise our voice as a woman, we could be fired, right?
And that's new, because you've been coaching for 20 some odd years.
Yes.
Right? So it didn't used to be that way, right?
Right, no, this is new. It is my generation, our generation of parents who have really, we're not allowed to hurt the feelings of anyone, and everyone is the best athlete on the team. But we're getting away from where I was.
Well, you were at the meeting, and the moderator was there, and they basically, nothing you said was work. Small group of people were really angry at you, and they said no practice today.
Yep.
Where to go from there?
We continued our season. A week later, my athletic director called me in again for another meeting. Both of these, the athletic director and the associate athletic director, were in these meetings. This one I'm told, this isn't going away, it's getting worse. Your decision, to make that post is affecting the entire athletic department. You're being called transphobic, transgressive, and unsafe.
So this is a week after that first little meeting.
Yes.
Did anything happen between then? Were there any crosswords? Did the subject come up again? Or are you just practicing and everybody's doing their thing? So who decided that things have gotten so much worse?
The athletic director, let me know that I had disrupted the whole department. So that means either other coaches, other athletes. I know that people had written to the president as well, saying that what I had said was wrong and that I needed to be fired. So she calls me in again, tells me I'm being called all these things, tells me I need to write a letter of apology to my team and the department. And immediately I say, okay, because I'm sitting there being, screamed at. And then I think about it and I'm like, actually, no, I will not write a letter of apology because I'm not sorry. I'm sorry that everyone is taking it the way they are, but I am absolutely not sorry for making that post and for standing up for women. So I will not apologize for that. I said I will have a conversation with any individual, with any athlete, with any coach, with parents, with staff. I'll have a conversation with the whole athletic department. If you want to put me in a room with the whole athletic department, I'll have a conversation. If any team wants to bring me in, I'll have a conversation. I am happy to do that. Nope. No conversations. Instead, I am told there's going to be another meeting that afternoon. And not only will my whole team be there, but the Title IX director for the entire college, the athletic director, and a DEI liaison for the athletic department. My team, me, and my assistant coach. And in that meeting, every athlete will be able to speak their piece about anything they want to say about me. And I will have to repeat it back to make sure that each athlete knows that they have been heard. So what I'm going to tell you now is, going back to 2020, 2021, when I saw things were, that you really couldn't speak your truth without getting your hand slapped, I started recording every meeting that I had with the athletic director. The only meetings I recorded were with the athletic director and associate athletic director. Those were the meetings I would record because of the pattern I saw. I knew I had to protect myself. And in Ohio, you can record any meetings as long as one person agrees, and that one person was me. You don't have to let the other people know you're recording. I never recorded any meetings with any athletes individually or as a team until this meeting that day, a week later, when I knew what was coming. Again, energetically, already having had a meeting with the team, having had these meetings with the athletic director, I knew what was coming. I prepared myself energetically for that meeting, knowing that I would be attacked. I warned the assistant coach that she should do the same. I was more worried about her emotionally than myself. When we got in that meeting, I will tell you that meeting lasted an hour and 42 minutes. I repeated back every single thing every player said negatively about me. When one player read 4 pages of everything good and great and why the assistant coach and I were great coaches, the Title IX director for the entire college said, "Well, that's a lot. How about I just summarize by saying that Kim and the assistant coach have done a lot of really great things for you as coaches." I wasn't allowed to repeat back anything positive.
Wow.
And so I'm telling you that meeting was recorded because I've just found out that many people who heard my story believe that I recorded all my conversations with athletes throughout my team at Oberlin. That is absolutely false, and anyone who is saying that from the college is lying. The only meeting with athletes I ever recorded was that one, and it was because of what I knew was happening.
What have you done with that recording?
I no longer, all of those recordings
They're gone?
are gone. Yes.
Intentional deletion or?
Intentionally.
Why did you want them recorded?
Why did I want them recorded? So the truth could be heard.
For just your own sake? I mean, you didn't feel like making them public to show everybody what was being done to you by this college? Because you've told the story in a number of forums. You told part of the story to Congress, for crying out loud.
Yes,
you were called to what committee did you testify in front of?
So I testified in front of Congress on December 5th of last year. I wasn't nervous at all because I didn't really do anything with politics. And I testified in front of a House committee that Lisa McClain was the sponsor of the bill to save Title IX.
Right.
And when Riley and I spoke there, along with a lawyer from the Heritage Foundation, I was blown away by what happened in that meeting. The very beginning, Senator Lee, Congresswoman Lee, after Representative McClain introduced the bill, Congresswoman Lee said, "You are about to hear from about a bunch of hateful, transphobic bigots." And I think my mouth just dropped open because I was like, are you kidding me here? And that was the beginning of a great sadness, actually, of these are the people we are paying to represent us in our government. Every single Democratic representative voted against women. The 3 Democratic representatives who were in the room during that entire hearing, who were women, acted like mean little high school girls, and I can say this as a woman. When we were testifying, they put their heads on their desk, did not look at us, and were looking at their phones.
Do you remember their names?
Lee was one.
Barbara Lee, right?
Summer Lee. AOC. And I can't remember the third one at the time.
So when it came, and I want to go back to what happened in your meeting with your team and that whole thing first, but since we're here, when it was their turn to question you, did they even let you speak? Or was it all just,
no.
It was probably
It was
like
an agenda.
It probably felt just like you were back in that meeting again, where you were forced to sit there and listen to people harangue you and criticize you and insult you and offend you, and you had to sit there and take it. At least this time they didn't make you repeat back to them, right? All of the horrible things that they said about you. But that is unbelievable to me. But going back now to the original group there, you said, I didn't know you had a DEI person, not a DEI, the Title IX person there. Title IX. The Title IX compliance director was there, whose job it is to advocate for women and girls, which is what Title IX is all about, actually siding with the side that says, let the biological male compete against the women and take your titles from you.
Yes.
Take your scholarships from you. Take whatever opportunities there. I thought Title IX compliance people were there to make sure women were getting a fair shake, not getting. Why would they argue and advocate against women?
Everyone in that room was a woman. Everyone in that room was a woman.
So, and everybody except you and your assistant coach. Well, your assistant coach, I assume, sided with you. She knows, So everybody in that room was a woman, advocating for positions that harmed women.
Correct.
Feminists around this country have taken up positions against women by declaring that trans women are real women. In other words, biological males are women. They don't pretend to be. We have to refer to them as such. And this is why you got to the place you were. So you had to listen to all of that garbage for an hour and 42 minutes. What happens at the end of it? You get up and say, thanks, everybody? Or did you want to just kind of flip them off and say, have a nice life, I'm out of here? What'd you do?
I was exhausted. I mean, the amount of time, and I'm pretty strong and can take a lot of bashing.
I can tell.
An hour and 42 minutes of the kids you love, like your own children. So as a coach, even players I don't like, I love them like they're my own children. Yeah. Some of the best notes I've ever received as a coach have come from the most difficult kids I've ever coached. 5-10 years later, hey, just wanted to reach out and tell you, I know that I might not have appreciated you when I was, 18, 15, 19, 22, whatever, but was just thinking about you because da-da-da-da-da, and thank you so much, right? So, I'm not a new coach. I don't expect everyone to love me or even like me. There's going to be days when the whole team doesn't like you when you're a coach, right? As a parent, the same thing. There's days your kids absolutely want to be nowhere near you. But an hour and 42 minutes of, let's tell this coach everything that we don't like. First of all, why would an administration do that to anyone, right?
To break you.
Right.
The goal wasn't, pardon me for the intrusion of this, but
sure.
it doesn't sound like the goal was to punish you. It was to convert you. It was to make you one of them. And it's kind of like, you said brainwashing a few minutes ago. That's how cults brainwash people. They eventually, it's a period of time of continual, repetitive beating of the same drum for a long period of time to the point where you can't hear anything else. And they break you down and then implant what they want to implant inside your head. It sounds like that's what they were trying to do. And in a lot of ways, Kim, I think it is a cult. I think what we're dealing with is a cult, and some people call it a virus, a woke mind virus, and I think that's what they were trying to do. They didn't want to just punish a bigot. They wanted to convert you and make you an ally.
Yeah, so when you ask at the end of the meeting, I really didn't say anything except that this is what I believe. It's very important to me, and I am so sorry that none of you can understand this. Not none of you, because there were those who did understand. And again, they're all afraid to speak.
Yeah. Right?
They're not going to say anything because look at what's happening to anybody who's speaking. Right? So at the end of that meeting, I didn't say much because it didn't matter. I just said, I'm not sorry for what I believe, once again, and I am so sorry that you have all seen it in this way.
So you didn't apologize?
No.
Okay.
No.
And at what point in the season was this, by the way?
Oh, right before conference starts. At the very beginning of the season.
So you had a whole lot of season in front of you still.
Oh yeah, we still had, so at this point it's the end of March. We have all of April. We have another whole month of season.
Okay.
Yes. It was the hardest season I've ever coached by far in all of my 28 years of coaching. So
what happened when you got away from the meeting and a little bit of time to reflect? Not just you, but them and everything else. Like, are we considering this over now? Can we rear view mirror this and move forward here? Or did they continue to bring this up?
Nobody brought it up. We coached and they played. And there was definitely, not the same type of team chemistry. There was not the same relationship that I typically have with a team. My assistant coach said to me, she said, Kim, it's really tough for you to do the locker room talks now, isn't it?
I can imagine.
And I said, yeah, it is.
It's probably really tough for that younger player that you said, too, in the first meeting that you had, who actually spoke up to defend you, and the way she had to leave the room, you said, because of the way they treated her. How did that go? Was there division on the team among maybe even the players that wanted to speak up but didn't, or did it all just kind of stay underneath the
I think that it was very much like what you're seeing around the world. People are just too afraid to say anything, and so there's this uncomfortable energy because everybody's afraid to say anything to anybody anymore.
Well, it's changing though, right? I mean, let's come current now.
Yes, some good stuff is happening
all
now.
Of this
really
was all of this was in 2022. Since that time, Riley Gaines went from being NCAA champion level swimmer, SEC champion, and all kinds of trophies, and on her way to dental school, to being, an international spokesperson for women's sports and women's rights and women's safety in not only competition but private spaces and so forth. You have had this, some of the similar type of an impact on women, being an ambassador for Independent Women's Forum and giving speeches and testifying and so forth. And let's come current now. You and I talked about this on the radio. 5, I think, different teams.
Yes.
And Division I volleyball have refused to play San Jose State University because San Jose State University has a biological male spiking the ball at 120 miles an hour at girls' heads or women's heads, and they won't play anymore. So, and the best part about this, Kim, is not only are the opponents speaking out. So are his teammates. And I'm sorry, I don't play the pronoun
And the
game.
associate coach.
The associate coach, and then a team captain, I think, have said, we don't want him playing with us. We don't like this. And we don't like the fact that we're missing games because of it. And they're the ones who are who have the most to lose here, and they're speaking out. So people are starting to find their voices, aren't they?
Not only that, there's now a lawsuit against the Mountain State Conference, against San Jose State University, and
filed by whom?
Against their head coach, filed by the captain, Brooks Lesser, by the associate head coach, Melissa Beatty-Smoose, who is, I commend her. I commend every single one of these athletes for speaking up, because, again, it isn't easy. And the, mob is telling you not to, right? Mm-hmm. So not only those two, Sia Lilly, who is captain and one of the top players on University of Nevada at Reno, and their college did not support them in boycotting, and the team did anyway. And that was just phenomenal. So she is a part of this lawsuit. There are players and captains on other teams. So Utah State, Kaylee Ray, Utah State, as a university, is now part of that lawsuit. And now this, some of the representatives and politicians in Utah are also standing behind the college in being a part of that lawsuit. So this is huge. But it took the girls to do it. And what I'm still really frustrated by is that why is it taking the young girls standing up? Where are the adults in the room?
Right.
Where are the administrators? Where are the coaches? But specifically the NCAA overall, our politicians. We do finally have a Democratic senator in Massachusetts speaking up, which is fabulous. Utah's Governor Cox is finally speaking up, and he actually vetoed the keeping men out of women's sports originally, but he is part of...
Come around now?
Yep, signing on to Utah State being a part of this.
Seth Moulton just recently, he's a Democratic
he's
rep.
the one, yes.
Oh, okay.
He's the Massachusetts, I believe.
Got it, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and he's the one who spoke up because he's got daughters.
Yes.
And he doesn't want them on the field with people. I mean, how dangerous are we talking about? We've seen, there's a girl who's still paralyzed from the
I know her very well.
What's her name?
Peyton McNabb.
Yeah.
Has not ever been able to be on a volleyball court again since she was in high school and spiked in the face. And, the thing
We've seen girls on basketball courts, playing against males who have big, broad shoulders and elbows, who are coming down and knocking girls down. Have there been injuries on lacrosse and field hockey?
Field hockey, a huge injury in Massachusetts at the high school level. And so this is not against anyone who's trans. The boy on the Massachusetts field hockey team is a heterosexual male, but they're allowed to play on girls' teams in Massachusetts. It should not be allowed. Men...
Whether they say they identify as females or not?
Right. No, he
so
doesn't.
It's just co-ed.
It's not even co-ed. It's a women's team, but because there's not a men's team, they let him play on the girls' team, girls' high school team.
Wow.
He hit the ball so hard, it shattered the girl's jaw, and she lost most of her teeth.
Oh, my God.
She is disfigured for life. Peyton McNabb has injuries for life. What is it going to take before we change these laws, right? I don't care what anybody says. The truth is, from conception, males and females are different. From conception, they are different. And, yes.
Sure.
XXXY.
It matters.
Right?
There's
matters.
a massive difference there.
If there is any Y, they are not a female. Only XX can be female if there's any Y. So I will go into DSDs. The two boxers.
The Olympics, yeah.
Yes, DSDs, they are not females. It is well known that they are not females. They may have been misread at birth. They've known for a long time, though, that they are not females.
Yeah.
So this has nothing to do with inclusion of anyone. Title IX was actually specifically written for exclusion of males in women's sports. Exclusion so that women could have the rights. We are still behind in the original Title IX as far as money spent on women in academic and athletic scholarships, and in the money spent on the athletic opportunities for women and girls. So now we're going to allow men and boys into that space and take away the rights that we were given.
There's in recent days and weeks, there's even a battle on Capitol Hill now over the bathroom issue of this. Because again, going back to what you were talking about with Paula Scanlon and how angry and upset these girls were that they were forced to change and shower with and nearby, the biological male, and how wrong that was. So Representative Nancy Mace is like Paula. I think you said Paula was a survivor of sexual assault. Nancy Mace. It shouldn't take that, by the way. It shouldn't take somebody who suffered a horrific thing to say, hey, we should be afraid of males in private spaces like this. It ought to just be common sense. But nonetheless, there is a trans congressperson for the first time, a biological male who identifies as a female, and her name is Sarah McBride. And Nancy Mace is saying, sorry, we're not doing this. We're not letting you into the female changing areas. It's just not going to happen. We're not doing this just the way they did. And the Speaker of the House said, yeah, we agree. All facilities will be for the sex of the actual biological sex of the individual, and we will I think they're talking about making third neutral accommodation or whatever. If you don't want to go into one or the other, you can go into this private thing over here. That's progress, right? When you look at the San Jose State thing, and now you said, when are they going to change the laws? These are the lawmakers we're talking about right now.
And thankfully, because the parts that I think some people really aren't looking at as, look at the Me Too movement, right? Speak up. That was about speaking up. Speak up. Tell people what's happening. Mm-hmm. Tell people that something's happened with this, man who's sexually assaulting you or speaking in a way to you that is making you uncomfortable. Well, now, basically, we are teaching girls and women to be quiet when their gut instinct is saying, I'm unsafe. So if I saw you in a bathroom, I would immediately feel unsafe.
Absolutely.
And if I'm being told I can't tell anyone this, that is actually grooming me to be sexually assaulted and possibly trafficked. So how can that be okay? How can we be telling girls and women, there's an adult man in your bathroom, you need to be okay with that. You need to think that's absolutely normal. Absolutely not.
And because it doesn't stop at the bathroom. It goes into the locker room, which is where you change clothes, which goes into then the shower room, depending on what the circumstances are. But you understand the point. If you allow one, it goes all the way through. And you're supposed to be okay with that too. Where are the feminists? Like we've talked about, where are the feminists and the true Title IX champions from 52 years ago, 52 years ago? Where are they now? How are they so okay with what you just said? That young women, girls and young women are being groomed into accepting that, which does indeed put them into a position where they could be very, very, seriously harmed.
And so I will tell you, most of the feminist groups are speaking up with us. They've been part of the Title IX bus tour, WDEI USA. Kara Dansky has written on it, has spoken on it. I spoke to the Wolf Conference, Women's Liberation Front, where I would say the majority of the women there were, I've said we're lesbians and are just cannot believe that this is being allowed to happen.
It's good to hear. It's good to hear, but I'm a little, and maybe there's some division in it, I guess, among the feminist movement or people, because there were an awful lot of women who celebrated Joe Biden changing the terms of Title IX or the descriptions, including gender identity along with race and sex and creed and so forth. So there were a lot of them, and they consider themselves allies. You were surrounded by them, including the Title IX.
Yes.
What's the word?
Compliance officer.
Yeah.
Director.
In your little circle there. I mean, this person wasn't looking out for women. I assume she was probably a feminist to a degree that she's working as a Title IX advocate, but yet she's willing to sell out women for being an ally of this movement because it seems like the political agenda is larger in their mind, or at least higher priority than the protection agenda ought to be for women.
I think a lot are also not informed, the ones that their own political party was not voting the way they thought they were. So when I spoke at the one conference, they let me speak twice because all these women are telling me, yes, we're on the same side, we're on the same page, we don't want this happening. I said, well, let me tell you something. I just testified in front of Congress, and I'm about to go speak at a Senate roundtable. And when I testified in front of Congress, not one Democratic representative, not one, voted to protect Title IX. Not one. Every Republican representative did. And to me, even if I had thought about voting Democrat in this last election, that flipped me right there.
That flipped
Not
you and
one,
millions of people
many
like you.
Many other men and women. The number of women who I know switched because of that. Now, that wasn't the only reason I switched. Health is a big part of my,
Sure.
and protection of children. Huge. I am all for our health, our children, and women's rights. And the other thing that I think a lot of people don't understand is our rights are being taken away in law. So not just Title IX. I had the opportunity to go speak at an event in New Mexico to try to get the Women's Bill of Rights passed there. So if you look at the laws at the state level, the number of times the word woman is used, if we're changing the actual definition of a woman, it allows men everywhere.
Yeah.
It allows men to take women's rights away everywhere. And so this Women's Bill of Rights basically does three things. It defines a woman as someone born female.
Mm-hmm. An adult human female.
Yes,
that's
right?
the key.
And they have to be born female.
Yes.
Right? So the problem is people are even using female incorrectly now as they discuss the trans and the men in bathrooms. The second is for vital statistics, we need to know what you were born as, right? You can have any other questions on your questionnaires, but for education, for medical, and for criminal records, we need to know who were you born as.
100%.
Are you a female or are you a male, right? And
Third one?
now I can't even remember because those are so important
Yeah,
to
the
me.
first two are most important. But so defining a woman, though, and then and being born a woman, you have
Right.
to be an adult human female, and of course define female, and then for vital records, and then there was a third part, and
Yes.
it's okay if you don't have it.
I
Because,
don't.
But where is this bill? Is what I want to know.
So it's been passed in a number of states, and the Independent Women's Forum is behind this, getting this passed. Really, we would love to get it passed in all 50 states. We were in New Mexico speaking on it at the time. And again, people don't realize like what we saw is the number of times the word woman comes up in law, right? And so if you think about that and then think, oh, well, we're being erased.
Totally.
Because all you
we
have
have
to
a
do.
Supreme Court justice who refused to define woman.
Yes.
She refused. She just flat out said, well, I'm not a biologist, so I can't really say. What, are you kidding me? And she's on the Supreme Court. So you're right. You are absolutely in danger of being erased. And every woman and every feminist, and quite frankly, every girl dad ought to be
Yes.
thinking about this. I've got a daughter, and she used to be an athlete, and now she's a total academic, and she's going to be a great lawyer someday. But any dad... and I think you just said, you voted the way you did in the election. And I think the overwhelming response of the nation was in response to things like what you and Riley and others are bringing up here. I mean, I do politics for a living, basically. Immigration, inflation, and crime are the the three top issues in this election, according to
Yes.
almost every survey. But I absolutely believe the overwhelming victory for the Republican Party had as much to do with the culture and how sick and tired people were of this woke nonsense, putting women like you and our daughters in harm's way. This nonsense about physical and surgical mutilation should be
Yes.
what is done to young girls' bodies and boys too, going in the other direction. This boys becoming girls, girls becoming, but this whole thing, just people got tired of it, and people said enough of the insanity. boys and girls sports, enough of the insanity. I think it moved millions. I think you went to Congress. This was seen by, probably millions of people. And what you and everybody else are doing to speak out, you're going to end up saving not only girls sports, but girls.
Yeah, I mean,
really
to me,
are.
that's what's more important at this point, especially with the people I've met through speaking out and what's happened to their lives. So 2D transitioners. And what I'll tell your audience is one of them said to me, Kim, I was so ill and so the emotional and mental pain I was in was so much that I never would have believed I could have felt worse physically than I already did mentally and emotionally until I did.
Yeah.
Right? And so her story and getting to know her and getting to know another detransitioner and then getting to know a former prisoner who had to be imprisoned with males because of California's laws and what was happening there. And then getting phone calls because of speaking out from a friend of mine from high school, an associate who I hadn't talked to in years and years, whose daughter all of a sudden after COVID said she wanted to be a boy. And this woman is extremely liberal. The brainwashing that is happening to our children.
Yep.
And anyone telling a kid that they will feel better if they have surgery and change their bodies, to me, it's
abuse.
Evil. It's actually evil.
It is. It's child abuse.
And they're not even talking about that just putting kids on the wrong sex hormones will change their brains.
Yeah.
And that may not be able to be changed back.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So all of this egregious harm to children is much more important to me than even the males in women's sports. It's the mental, emotional, and physical damage to children and women.
The high-profile stories of the athletes brings this up. It kind of puts it on the table for discussion. The championship swimmers and the boxers in the Olympics and everything else. But you're right. At the end of the day, it's about more than just the sports. It's about protecting kids, especially young girls.
And let's take care of these girls.
Amen.
Right? Let's get everybody some emotional help. Let's get everybody some help. How do we feel better in these bodies we were given? Right? It's not easy. And we didn't even bring up that girls have cycles. Right? And I was told no more talking about that at Oberlin too, but we'll have to have another conversation someday about that. And that affects women and girls every single day, and there's ways we can help them feel better.
There are online influencers telling boys who think they're girls how to deal with it when their periods start. They're on there. They're doing videos on TikTok and in Reels, and like, you can't shed a uterine wall without a uterus.
Yeah.
Which is what creates you can't do that. And you had a vice presidential candidate who stocks tampons in boys' bathrooms just in case you need it for what? I mean, honestly, it is an indoctrinational brainwashing that you are talking about, almost a cult mentality, and it's going to harm children until we get enough lawmakers.
It is and has harmed so many kids already.
No question about it.
And
but
families.
you're a part of the solution, Kim, and I want to thank you for doing what you do and telling the story here. We covered a lot of ground here. I know you're going to do a ton more interviews, hopefully a ton more speeches, talk to enough legislators and tell them exactly, what this is doing, your experience, and you're going to end up saving a lot of kids. You're going to end up saving a lot of young girls and young women with your advocacy. So thank you for doing that. I hope you keep it up.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Follow Kim Russell and share this episode, please, in your own social media. Put it in an email chain, something like that. Make sure people know about this. It is extraordinarily important. Thank you to Kim Russell, and thanks to you for watching Strictly Speaking. See you next time.